So I just noticed, I forgot we had a meeting at the end of November. So when we get to that, we'll do them for the next meeting instead of, we've already approved. Those.
Okay.
So
November
that's,
27th?
yeah, that's my bad, but because I didn't share the minutes, I rather just.
On YouTube.
Okay, thank you very much. So call the meeting to order at 4:59, which is on the verge of 5 o'clock. We have a mover for the adoption of the agenda, please. All in favor? Mover for the accepting of the minutes of the previous meeting, which was November 27th.
So I'll just note that we had passed the October 16th minutes at the last meeting. I forgot we had had a meeting at the end of November. So if the committee is okay with it, we'll just pass the November 27th meeting at the November 27th minutes at the March meeting. Second.
So everybody okay with that?
Everyone's okay with that?
Just very good. All in favor? This is arising from the minutes. Seeing none, any disclosure of pecuniary interest, general nature thereof? Seeing none, chair's comments. Good evening, welcome to the evening's Committee of Adjustment meeting. The Council of the Municipality of East Ferris has empowered this committee to make decisions on minor variance and consent to several applications on their behalf. The committee is made up of 5 citizen members, 2 members of council. The members are as follows. Frank, would you start off with this?
Frank Corbeil.
Lauren Roy Acres, council.
Ken Leopard. Greg Curtin, staff.
Terry Kelly, council.
Mary Hanselman, staff.
Kim Rose, staff.
Steve Austin.
Stephanie Holmes.
Thank you very much. As required under the Planning Act and pursuant to policy, the committee is holding a public meeting prior to making a decision on the proposed applications. The Committee of Adjustment has not yet made any decisions on these matters, and all comments received prior to this evening's meeting, as well as comments received tonight during the meeting, will be considered in the decision. The committee makes our decisions based on the criteria outlined in the Planning Act that corresponds to the specific application type. The process will be as follows. I'll ask the applicant to present their application in the order listed on the agenda. The committee will ask any questions they have of the applicant. Staff will then provide their comments on the application and give an overview of correspondence that's been received. Members of the public will present and answer questions if needed. We allow for a 10-minute maximum time limit on all public comments to the committee. We will then move to a motion to approve or refuse the application. We'd ask that everyone please be respectful in their presentations, and comments should be related directly to the application. We've gone through the conflict of interest. We'll now move to the first item on the agenda. And that is number A, 2025-01, Francois and John Weinhardt, 240 Waukegan Road. The purpose of the application is to permit a variance to zoning bylaw 2021-60. The applicant seeking a minor variance to permit an increased accessory structure for, structure floor area to a maximum of 1,600 square feet, whereas 960 square feet is the permitted maximum. Tom, would you come have a seat, please? Welcome.
Thank you. I'd like to give you a quick overview.
Please.
Okay, so I currently have a 2-car garage, and I have developed an addiction to classic cars over the years, and find myself with a classic car project in the garage with 2 cars that we drive in the summer, and no room to work on it. So basically, the application is to build another 2, I'll call it 2.5 car garage addition, so that I have a place to store the cars that we drive in the summer, and I have another garage to do the working on the other vehicle. That's essentially the reason I'm asking for the variance, just out of space at the moment.
Any questions from the committee? Have the staff report, please.
Sure. So we didn't receive any correspondence from any agency or anyone in the neighborhood on this one. With regards to my staff report, ultimately, I think when you're judging the impact of a minor variance for accessory structure size, It's about looking at what the intent of the policies are and what type of like impact granting it would have. So numerically, it's a relatively significant increase in floor area, but then when you look at the site plan that's up on the screen, it's designed in a way that's very central to the lot. It's off of the existing garage in a kind of thoughtful way. And also not shown on here is the fact that the lot is heavily treed and vegetated. There's a municipal vacant lot to the left, and to the right, it's well treated. So all those things together, the intent of the policy is to be proportional to the lot, I think are achieved. And I don't think there's any detrimental impacts to the neighboring properties. So for that reason, I have no objection.
Any questions at all? So everyone's in agreement, I have a mover and seconder, please.
The minor variance application A 2025-01 submitted by Francois and John Weinhardt requesting a minor variance to permit an increased accessory structure floor area to a maximum of 1,600 square feet be approved.
All in favor? Thank you, John.
Thank you very much. Great evening.
Next, we've got B 2025-01, public geomatics on behalf of Marianne Saunders, which is vacant on Levine Road. The purpose of the requested consent is to permit a lot addition to the adjacent lands located at 1750 Corville Road.
Evening all. Steve MacArthur, I'm planner with Tulloch Engineering in North Bay, 1501 Seymour. I believe Mr. Curtin's going to call up a bit of a drawing and a map here. I think I'd like to just start the presentation by saying that there is no development proposed as part of this application. What is being proposed is that there is a large wetland that's defined by the edge of the proposed severed. And you can certainly see it from the Google imagery that leads to a creek, a ditch that comes out to Corville Road. That creates this kind of natural severance of these lands that are for our client landlocked. The Saunders property fronts on Levine and their house is down at that end. And those lands are essentially locked or inaccessible from their property. So the intention of the application this evening is to add them to the abutting lands, which are will facilitate some future property planning and consolidation. Consolidation of those lands allows the proper planning to go forward in terms of our studies, our environmental studies, and our work that needs to be done to kind of look at that as a potential future project. They would definitely be brought back to council and to this committee for any sort of draft approval or draft plan if it got that far. But the intention of tonight is to simply consolidate those acreage, those acres with the abutting parcel.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from committee members? Right?
You're saying that there's no future development plan for that?
We don't have one yet. The intent is to do some property consolidations for some long-term planning, some long-range planning. We would, of course, have to meet with the town staff and make sure that, that's desirable development and that it's well planned out. Really, it's just about, I like to use the analogy, creating the canvas so we can paint on it a little bit. The lands, as I said, are kind of landlocked. They're not of use to our clients, the Saunders. They're looking to dispose of them and add them to an abutting property that may facilitate some future development there.
So this is so what I've heard, read in here is that the end of this year, you're going to be bringing a plan for, the hydrological study for lot 13 concession 10, right?
Meadow Drive?
Meadow Drive.
Yes.
And that property that we're talking about here is going to be added to that property.
Yes, we can't add that to that property tonight.
Right.
Because it doesn't front on a road.
Right. But it sort of extends that property, that concession.
Yep.
Lands back for you.
Correct.
So the hydrological study
Yes.
that we've read before back in May of 2024
Yes.
is part of, so lot 15, concession 7, lots 14, concession 7, 13, lot 13, concession 7, then lot 14, concession 8, lot 13, concession 8. Sorry, I said it that way. There's a better way of saying that.
Yes.
So that is part of the hydrological study,
Yes.
right? And we've already passed 28 lots for these, on these properties that are part of that hydrological study.
Okay.
Is that right? Well, okay, it's right, because I've gone back. So anyways, but we've also passed the industrial property that's not part of that hydrological study. So I guess this information really isn't for you.
Okay.
It is for the council, for the committee, if that's okay.
Mhm.
Because, but that industrial property is not part of the hydrological study,
Okay.
is it?
The hydrological study was looking at the entire 400 acres or whatever that was, Living, Quakeway, Corville Road and across Corville Road, right?
Can I give you this?
Yes.
This is the hydrological study,
Yes.
the map from there.
Yeah.
And I just. Does anybody else want a copy? Because I made a couple copies, if that's a share.
Sure, no, it's fine, definitely.
Yep.
I don't know if anybody, like, maybe nobody wants it. Okay.
Mhm.
So I guess why I'm asking this, I'm talking to the committee about this, is that we're sort of making an addition to a lot, and I have no problems with that. But we've sort of had a. Oh, if I have enough, I don't know.
I probably, I know.
Okay.
Reviewed all the old ones.
Oh, now I don't know if I have. Okay, I may have to use your copy. Oh, there, I've got another copy. Okay. So the 400 acres, are you talking from like concession 7, lot 15, 14, and 13?
Yes.
Wait, and then including lot 14, concession 9, lot 13, concession 9,
Yeah,
concession 10?
thanks for the map because it's very helpful.
Okay,
A couple of things. Yes, the hydro G study was done on that entire acreage that you've identified for this property. There were additional studies done that weren't just the hydro G. As you know, there was a traffic study done.
right,
And we also did an environmental study.
yeah,
What that told us was that there were a lot of the property was not developable. Okay.
okay,
So the hydro G accounted for the number of lots that could be created at a maximum. But there are other accompanying studies that have identified that it can't be developed to that capacity.
okay,
So what we're proposing, and I don't want to get off track of what we're proposing tonight, is that we're looking at some lands, some opportunity to look at some lands and some consolidation that may be developable, but we don't know because we have to get in there and do the work and do the study and see. But we could be coming back to this committee in the same situation we're talking about tonight, where we know after all that work that it's not doable or it's not viable, right? The cost is too high or whatever, or there's environmental concerns.
So in the hydrological study, I didn't see a maximum of number of lots. You don't know how many lots.
I know that it was based on acreage and then dividing it up, but what I'm trying to say this evening is that we know that acreage is is much, much less than what we originally started out doing. And that's what we're trying to do this evening is consolidate some parcels so we can go look at them and say, is it viable? Can we do a development there? Is it possible? We don't know yet. So when we get to max, I can see where you're going with the question. How many lots are there going to be or eventually over time, all of that. The lots are draft approved by council. We don't have any draft approvals that I'm aware of other than the few lots that were created on Levine, which we're getting ready to final approve very soon. I believe that's 8, 9, Mr. Curtin. And that's it. That's all we have that I believe that are ready for final approval.
But that was also part of the 13 lots that are along concession or lot 15 concession 7.
Those were done through consent, yes.
Okay. And then there was 4 other ones there. And then there's the 11 lots along Levine. So the other thing is that, and again, not part of the study, but I think it's important for planning, I guess, is that, there is the industrial shop that could possibly be there and draw on water. Plus also there's a fire hall that we're sort of proposing in that same area that could draw on water. And so those things are not part of the hydrological study because the Gagne shouldn't be responsible for municipal planning.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's important for the committee to hear that. Is that okay for me to say?
It's an opinion.
Right,
Sure.
right. So, well, it's not opinion, it's also, the hydrological study didn't account for other things that are being planned in this area. So it's getting quite dense and I'm just.
If I could, you're correct in what you're saying. It didn't anticipate, fire or other things, but it anticipated a lot more residential construction per acre than what can be done on 400 acres. So it's a trade. We know there's a lot of water there, and a lot of capacity. If the municipality chooses to piggyback on that hydrogeological study for their own purposes for what they're doing, that's possible. That can certainly be done. We're saying that the hydro GE said you could have, let's pull a number, 100 lots over time. And we know that, whatever it is, 40 are developable. There's 60 capacity in the hydro G study that's not being used. So that should put your mind at ease on any municipal project or anything else that happens in the industrial area.
But we don't have any of that in writing.
Well, it's in the study. It talks about how, per acre, how many, your drawdown on the 4 corners of the 400. So it's looked at regionally. It's not the study specific to your particular needs, no.
Right, so we really don't know. There's no plan, big plan for this. There's no, that we're being given. We're sort of, so I guess I'm sort of seeing this as a development by several small we've got blinders on, we just do these 4 lots, sever, and then did 13, and then did 3, and then did 8, right? And then put the industrial. So we're making these decisions without knowing what the big plan is. And so that's kind of my concern, is that there could be a maximum of, I can do the calculations because I ran out of time, but let's say 400 lots on here. Well, if it's 400 hectares, we have 400 acres, it could be 200 houses because it's 2 acres per lot, right? So is that a potential to have 200 acres
No.
or 200 lots? And why would you say that?
Well, for one, your policy doesn't permit it. That's number one. Number two, the land is not viable for that. So there is no master plan. There is no overarching plan for the entire community. Ferris, what you described is very accurate. planning process. We find pieces of land that may or may not be developable. We put a lot of hard work into studying that to see. And then we review it from a policy framework with your staff. Make sure it's in the best interest of the community and in conformity with the official plan and with the zoning that's in place. And if so, we make an application for draft approval, which we bring to you folks. You review all that and decide if that is in the best interest and you grant approval. From that draft approval, we have 5 years to bring forward a final approval. So it's very much like you described, it's very accurate. It's small pieces. It's not, there's no master plan for a 200 lot subdivision or anything like that, nor would we ever entertain bringing that forward in that capacity.
Would it be possible for you to the next time you come to council, to this committee, is have the lands that won't be developed? Would that be a possible, like, because you're saying some of these lands are not, could you sort of map that out for us? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, if it was relevant to the application we're making, with all due respect, that's not relevant to this evening's application.
Right, I get it. But I guess, why I'm asking these questions now is in your report, it was mentioned about the potential for development. So I'm and that it's linked to the hydrological study and the traffic study. So
Yes.
that's why I'm bringing it forward.
Understand.
This conversation before the bigger plan is brought forward, and then we're kind of stuck. But we have to say yes. And we kind of have to say yes because there's the build more houses faster,
I can promise you that we will not be presenting you with properties and development applications that are not in conformity with your official plan, do not meet the provincial policy statement tests or the D-series guidelines for separation of sensitive uses, are not hydrologically supported, are not supported by a traffic study. I won't do that. I'm a professional land use planner. I'm going to bring you something that's not vetted through your highly qualified staff and brought forward for your consideration. That's passed all the sniff tests. That's not what we do. This application tonight is a perfect example of what we're trying to do. Good planning, which is there's a piece of land that is landlocked. It could potentially in the future accommodate some housing, but in order for us to go and do that good work and that due diligence, we have to consolidate it and it has to be purchased by our group, by our clients, so that they can actually invest in trying to find out if it's doable. Then we'd be back here if it is.
So I'm not I hope I'm not.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And I'm certainly not
Discussion.
saying anything about our professional, because I respect everybody's opinion.
Yeah.
I guess for me, I'm pretty ignorant of planning, right? I'm not an expert. I have to dig, I have to keep reading stuff. I have to have visuals for me, right? So I have to do this and I have to ask questions so that it's in the public forum, open and transparent. So I hope that I'm not insulting anyone.
Not at all.
Yes, I just want to make sure that this is out in the public and that people also understand we do have a potential fire hall and industrial shop and a general commercial right up at Corbeil over right there. That could be there that is drawing water, right? So there's a potential for this to be a really busy area.
In terms of the residential development that is immediately adjacent to the spot that you're talking about for the fire hall and that sort of, use, there's not a lot of residential lot creation opportunity left on that stretch. You have the large parcel that is consolidated for industrial park, right? The rest is pretty much, what I would call the low-hanging fruit, where it's fronting on one of your municipal roads and there's no need to create a new road, has pretty much been developed out. There's not much left. If you look at that stretch of Levine, for example, or even Corbeil Road. So I don't see a great opportunity for a huge amount of new lots in that area. We know that it's wet, it's environmentally sensitive, there's challenges. We are going to do our best to find small pockets that could still help you meet those housing targets that you have to meet. And that's what we're trying to do. But we're trying to do it in a very conscious way, a good planning way, an environmentally sensitive way. And make, that, as I stated, so you weren't insulting me at all. There's a lot of work that comes before we even show up here to you folks. There's work at the beginning to consolidate the properties, and then there's weeks, months, sometimes years of work before we bring it back to you. And hopefully, when we bring it back to you, it feels like a rubber stamp because the work's been done so well and been vetted by your staff. Hopefully.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Steve? Ken, anyone?
What steps has the municipality taken to secure the potential property for the fire hall?
You want to?
Yeah, sure. So we've entered into a purchase and sale agreement with the current tenant. We've done a survey of the property. There's a series of conditions that we need to satisfy ourselves of, and it is in fact suitable for fire hall. One of those steps is a zoning bylaw amendment application that needs to take place, which will actually be coming to this committee next month. So the March planning committee, there will be an application from the municipality to rezone those lands for a fire hall. So we'll have more to say about it then, but that's where we're at with this purchase.
Other questions concerning the application? And staff report, please.
Sure. So we didn't receive any correspondence on this this fall either. I probably don't have a lot to add because I think the conversation that just took place covered a lot of it. But ultimately, what we're looking at is a consolidation so that a future development proposal could take place, which as Mr. MacArthur said, would come back to this committee and then to council ultimately. I guess the one thing I'd like to touch on is related to hydrogeological studies. So when we've dealt with these pockets of development in the past, the community may remember the first one that we dealt with was the strip along Corbeil Road, and that was when the initial hydrogeological study was submitted. And then when the next larger application along Levine came in, we received a supplemental brief related to that specific lot development project that provided a bit of updated information and site specific information on the hydrogeological study. So, I mean, we're getting outside the scope of this application, but I would expect to see from the applicant when the next draft plan of subdivision application comes in, some type of update or a briefing on that hydrogeological study to specifically reference the project that they're applying for. And given that things have changed and we know that there could potentially be a fire hall and there are other kind of nuances to land uses in the area, we would expect to see some type of reference to those projects when we receive the submission. So yeah, typically, I mean, the land use planning process, where we evaluate projects as they come forward to the committee. It's difficult to speculate a lot of the time because when we know that they haven't completed any type of detailed design, it's hard for us to kind of speculate on what may or may not come in. So what we do know is that they're pursuing this to consolidate lands so that they can invest that time and money to come forward with a more detailed proposal. To me, I mean, there's no development proposed through this application, and we're not, preemptively judging a future application. There's nothing binding the municipality to approve any future application. If this application is approved, it would go through the full comprehensive review process as any other subdivision would. So I don't see any problems with this specific application. And in my mind, we'll wait and see what the studies and the data say for any future application.
Okay, thank you. Does any member of the public wish to make any comments? Seeing none, everybody moving second with this?
application B 2025-01 submitted by Atomic Geomatics on behalf of Mary Saunders, requesting permission for a lot addition to the adjacent lands located at 1750 Kerrville Road. Be approved conditional upon the completion of the standard conditions listed in the notice of decision.
All in favor? Thank you for the presentation. Move on to Justin Fay. Come forward, please. Evening. Purposely requested consent to allow the creation of one new lot for residential.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Not sure exactly what to say, but my name is Dustin Fay and I own some vacant property on Fay Road. And just looking to create a small lot for residential purposes. Yeah,
Size of the lot is.
it'd be 2 acres,
Hectares.
Mhm.
Any questions from the committee? Definitely, Steve.
Pretty straightforward.
And you're good?
No.
Okay, as a staff report, please.
Sure. So again, we didn't receive any correspondence on this application. This one is proposing a lot which meets our minimum standards, 60 meters of frontage and 2 acres. It does leave adequate frontage for the retained parcel. This section of Fay Road is very flat and straight, so sightlines for driveway entrances to either the severed or the retained lands are suitable. And other than that, there's no environmental consideration outside of the Conservation Authority regulated area. And I don't really have any other comments. It's a fairly typical severance application.
Anybody in the public want to make a comment or any questions? Sure.
I live at 54. Hi, Dustin.
Hi, how are you?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I live at 54, so directly across from separate property. So my site view, this is my lane right here. My site view would be here. So I'm just kind of wondering what your intentions are. Are you building a 3-story home and blocking that complete view?
Definitely can't afford that.
Okay. No?
No, absolutely not. I mean, no plans to, build any sort of like huge modern looking house or anything like that.
And,
Yeah.
my home's modern, so I'm not against that. I just
Yeah.
currently right now I look out, I see a beautiful field, I see moose and deer. And I'm not against anybody building there by any means. I just don't want to look at a 3-story home that's going to block everything.
Right. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So I don't know
Well,
how
if-
that would affect the application, and I'm not here to stop them. Not here. I just more out of curiosity. Yeah, okay.
I can provide one comment maybe, so just on behalf of staff. So anytime a building permit application comes in, we review it against our zoning bylaw.
Okay.
So our zoning bylaw sets out a number of standards as far as like setbacks from property lines, size, coverage, and one of those standards is height. So there is a height limitation that you can build to as a maximum. And if the applicant, whether it's Dustin or someone else wanted to build something higher, they would be back at this committee asking for an exemption, and you would get a notice in the mail the same way you did for this.
Yes.
So they'd be allowed to go just over 30 feet in height as per our zoning bylaw. But if they wanted to do a very large 3-story or beyond that, you'd have another opportunity to be at this committee to discuss it.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. And my intent was not to, okay,
That's fine.
all right.
That's fine.
I just more or less curious and I don't want to block my view.
No, I get it.
Sorry, can I describe your name, please?
My name's Crystal Jeffrey, Noel and Crystal Jeffries.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further questions or any concerns? Seeing none, can I move your second request?
Set application B 2024-02, submitted by Dustin Fay, requesting permission to allow for the creation of one new lot for residential purposes. Be approved conditional upon the completion of the standard conditions listed in the notice of decision.
All in favor? It's carried. Any correspondence or information? Thank you very much, Dr. West. Have a good evening.
That's
Okay, the session, no in camera required. Can we have a move second or adjournment, please?
Sorry, I got Lori. We do now adjourn at 5:34 PM and meet again on March 19th, 2025 if required.
All in